Rekha, I have to take a moment to just say that I'm really, really excited that I finally got you here.
Thank you.
I know that you know, it's been like almost a year since I met you in New York. I hounded you down and I said I need a meeting with you because, you know, I go back to years of, you know, when I first got divorced, and I remember trying to find kind of an identity in North America, being that I'm from England. In England there was already like this, you know, great emergence of pop culture in the mainstream for our community, kind of as I was growing up in the 80s. But when I came to Canada, it's like it was non-existent, and there were certain key people at the time that, you know, I came out of my marriage and I was trying to kind of find myself and, you know, who are we as a community in North America, and there was just a few people who were really rocking the pioneering voice of pop cultural South Asian identity. You were one of them, and I know that kind of dates. I know that kind of dates the both of us.
It's okay.
But I do need to say that, you know, you to me are a tremendous role model. To have you here,
thank you,
on my show and at the event, and have the opportunity to honor you.
Have I turned red yet?
I'm gushing, and I want to gush because I have so much respect for you as an artist and as a woman as well.
Thank you.
So I want to ask you probably a really, you know, question that you get asked all the time, which is quite annoying, which is, why did you decide to go into the music genre from a professional standpoint?
I didn't.
Okay.
It decided to come to me.
Okay.
So I think my process was kind of, there was no master plan. And I kind of just did, one thing led to another. I started with my cousins, younger male cousins. And part of the ability to experiment and do it is because I was around like brothers. And I just always liked music. And I'm going to date myself. Always had a Walkman on, not an iPod. Going shopping with my mom with the Walkman on, reading the Rolling Stone at the beginning of the shopping trip, putting it down. I loved music of all kinds. And when my mom came back from England, I was born in London too.
Yes.
When my mom came back from my cousin's engagement party and brought Malkit Singh's tape up front, I think that if you could identify a moment that changes your life, that would be it. Just blew me away. I just couldn't believe it.
And what was it about it that blew you away?
I mean, you know, I grew up in a Punjabi-speaking household. My parents are from Delhi. We were around a lot of Bollywood, a lot of bootleg video cassettes, and you know, in the Bollywood movies was Hindi, and it was, you know, and I gained fluency. But listening to Punjabi being sung, and his voice, Malkit Singh's voice, is just so magical.
Absolutely.
I don't know, it was sort of a visceral connection. We had this one dusty folk record, and then we listened to, you know, to Hindi film music. And I don't know, it just connected. And then what really happened, what made it complete or full circle, was when I heard Baile Sigoo, Wham Bam Volume 1. When he took bits and pieces of Malkit Singh, mashed it up, spliced in everything from Mary Poppins to Martin Luther King, and kind of put it in the language of the dance music of the time, hip-hop and whatever other club dance music was, and then it just like, I was like, wow, this is incredible.
Yes.
And in terms of like what made me decide to do this professionally, it was a stop and start. I think a lot, I had quit my day job quite a few times. I had taken me a lot of courage to tell my parents at some point. I remember meeting my dad in a business suit because I didn't tell him I'd quit my job.
Wow.
Because, you know, it's risky.
Of course.
There's no proven path.
And we understand why they get nervous when we decide to do things like this. Yeah, yeah.
I would be nervous, but I think there's also a lot of misunderstanding. You know, music, arts, entertainment's a billion-dollar industry.
Yes.
Everybody doesn't need to be the artist. There's so many other ways to work in that world, in that universe, and every person's important, not just the person in front.
Absolutely.
I actually prefer to kind of be behind the scenes, as you know.
Yes.
And that's why DJing,
even like though you're not.
When I started DJing, you never saw the DJ. Now it's like the DJ's on the stage and there's lights, and you know, you were in the corner. You were like, when we started in the venue that I started at, we were up in the booth. We couldn't even see the dance floor. So in terms of the process or like the decision to become professional, I think when I saw that it was viable, when you know, it's when there was enough, you know, money in it for me or enough to make it seem like it could be a living. And it wasn't an easy decision, and it still isn't.
No, I understand that. But I think the reason why I feel that you've been so successful, there's many reasons, but one fundamental one is, and I know you hate this, but I'm going to say it.
Say it.
I'm going to say it, is that you created a brand. I know you don't like the B word.
No, it's okay.
But you created a brand without realizing that that's what you were in fact doing. And Basement Bhangra, 1997, it goes, I mean, that really dates both of us, right? 1997.
I was 3. Doesn't date me at all.
Oh my God, you and me both. And I had boobs back then too. And
I still don't.
And you know, the funniest thing was, is that, you know, I remember having this conversation with you when we met in New York last year. And I said to you, well, you know, I'm so impressed. I mean, you're a brand. And I was gushing all over you. And you were like, Rod, don't say that. Don't say I'm a brand.
Oh, it's icky.
Like, oh,
it's icky.
The B word.
Icky.
But really, I mean, in seriousness, you are. I mean, Basement Bhangra is the pioneer of pop cultural Bhangra in the mainstream. You brought artists, you know, into America that got their start because of the platform you gave them, right?
You're welcome.
Yeah, right? No, but it's true. And I know that it's probably hard for you to hear all this stuff about you, but you have done all this stuff. It is something that, you know, I don't know if you take a moment to just sit there and smell the roses, or if you're one of those people that just keeps going.
When you run your own game, do you sit there and smell the roses? You just on to the next game.
Can I tell you, I'm exactly the same. and I always hope that there are people that will say to themselves, you know, God, you know, I did that. But I find that the people that say those things end up becoming stagnant,
yeah,
and the journey never keeps moving on, right?
We just want to keep it moving.
Absolutely.
You know, that's how I see it. I just want to keep it moving.
Yeah, but you've kept it moving in several ways, not just with Basement Bhangra, and with kind of launching the coolness of Bhangra. That's what you did, right? Because I remember when I was growing up in England, right? I mean, if there was anyone playing like Bhangra music or, you know, Hindi music, I'd be like the first one to kind of close those windows, right? Then all of a sudden people like Bali Sagu, people like you, made it cool. It was like cool on music all of a sudden, right? And everything that came after that has been because of people like you who have, you know, kind of told us it's cool to identify with who we are, but in a way that, you know, we mesh it and fuse it into meaning something relevant to us in the West. That's kind of what you did with Basement Bhangra, right?
I mean, I just took styles of music I liked.
Yeah.
And, you know, fundamentally, the brand thing, I was like, only because, like, there's, you know, I think there's a discomfort sometimes about appreciating something artistically and then realizing and then corporatizing it, and so that's where that sort of aversion comes from. But I think, like, at the root of what I do is I want to play good music.
Yes.
And if there's a brand ethos, it's just like play good music.
Yeah.
And stick to your guns, and don't put anyone on the stage you don't believe in.
Right.
And trust me, like, you know, in the beginning we didn't really follow that rule, and because we were the only platform, so we were just sort of like very like, okay, sure, you have nothing to do with Bhangra music, but you know, some iteration we had this girl, she was like she was half Indian, she was a rocker. Yes. And they were begging us to play. I'm like, all right, she gets to do 2 songs or 3 songs. Yeah. After the first song, I was like, she has to stop. Yeah. It's not working. Yeah. They're like, why? I go, no, it's not working. They're gonna start throwing bottles at her. Oh, God. Those are like learning curves, you know, in the sense that when there's nothing, you just put everything together. And so, I mean, I think what was good is that Basement Bhangra found its voice. Yes. And then I was able to create other parties and other things and work and do stuff that has its identity. So the one thing I didn't want to do was, you know, it's a blurry line, especially if you're a South Asian DJ, because a lot of DJs are wedding DJs, and then they do the club, and then they do the wedding. Yes. And I think it's a totally different mindset. Yes. Or it's a broad brush of Desi, you know? And so they'll play a lot of different things. And when I do my sets outside of Basement, I do try to play the bag of tricks. But I think I wanted to create a space that was just about the love of Bhangra and hip-hop. Right. You've done so much other stuff outside of, you know, what you're mostly known as. There's a tremendous amount of work you've done, even in terms of the educational field within music. Talk to me a little bit about that. Well, I've adjuncted at NYU, and I've taught a bunch of classes there. So I definitely wore that, and I give talks and lectures and stuff. I did an artist residency in Bolivia. I did some workshops there.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I can't fit everything in. I'm like, I can't remember. You know, it's like you're on to the next gig.
Yes.
I did I did a tour with the U.S. State Department in India.
Yes, you did.
Did a tour with gigs and workshops with kids and stuff. So, yeah, I do colleges, you know, and different professional talks and stuff. So.
What would you say to?
And I was an artist in resident. I forgot. I was an artist in resident at NYU before I started teaching.
Yeah, I remember
for
that.
the APA Institute. Yeah.
See, there's just a ton of stuff you've done. In terms of you know, people that are looking to enter into you know, this, you know, the performing arts. Let's just keep it broad. What would you say to them, knowing what you've learned, that perhaps they're not going to know going into the industry because they haven't experienced the world that you've experienced, even though knowing that the music industry is dynamic in nature, as life is, right? Things are constantly moving and changing. What would you say, what would be that one or two key pieces of advice you feel they need to know going in?
I mean, I think you need to figure out how to pay your rent before your art can pay your rent. You need to have a strategy. So you need to figure out some very like practical things, because you're doing everything for yourself for a long time. So there's just a reality around it.
Yes.
And you know, if we look at, I do this game all the time, I look at successful actors and I see the professions of their parents, and most of the time they're just rich.
Yes.
Like Taylor Swift's dad was a stockbroker.
Yeah.
Let's not lie to ourselves.
Yes.
You know, Beyonce's family is very upper middle class,
Yeah.
Houston, you know, universe. And then, you know, there are the anomalies, right? People who've made it despite, you know, not having those resources at hand.
Yes.
I think one is, you know, make sure your work is good.
Yes.
You know, make sure your work is good, and hope that, be nice to people. Things are built on relationships.
Yes.
Someone's intern can be a decision maker in 5 years.
Yeah, you're right.
But don't work with jerks, and don't work with people that don't value you.
Right.
And that's a hard lesson.
And do you think that's the key thing? Because, you know, a lot of these people entering, you know, the world that you're in, they're not going to have a clue to know when something is an authentic offer and something isn't.
That's just a life lesson.
Yeah.
You know, there's no shortcut to that.
Yeah.
That's kind of like, you kind of have to just go through it.
Because you still don't acknowledge that you're a brand. That I have to go back there. I don't think you realize, because here's my thing, right? Someone's gonna make money off of something. Someone just is. So I always say,
it's okay.
Let it be me and the people I work with that actually gets that benefit, because someone's gonna get it regardless off of you.
You know what? I can't.
And I know that's because you're not motivated by money, which I love about you. You're motivated by the passion and the authenticity of the art form, right?
I mean, I do like money. I like to get paid. I'm not a charity case.
You're definitely not.
Let's not. DJ Rekha works for free for the love of it. No, I think that when you're in business, and when you have to, it's not for not trying to profit off of it. It's just those meetings.
Yeah,
and
that
those
you don't
promises,
like taking.
Or like, there's this one company, there's two companies that have become relatively whatever players. I won't even say their names. I had so many meetings with them. They didn't know what to do with me. They didn't know how to do it. And I also was like, maybe looking back, stingy, you know, because I don't want to, I don't broad brush. I want to have all the creative control. And when you go into partnerships and things, you have to give a little to get a little. And
I think it is the fact that people will compromise, so they get the gig. Right? Let's be honest here, right? People will make that compromise. They will sell their soul, quote unquote, to the devil. They will do it, right? But you can't. You can't not be who you are, which is why you're a brand. That's why you're a brand, darling. It's why you're a brand. I'm going to keep saying that to you. You have brought Bhangra to the White House. That is awesome. Talk to me about how that came about.
Well, it helps to know Cal Penn.
That's true.
And we
when
met,
he was working.
And we met
there.
on the set of American Daisy.
Yes.
And
yes.
we have a lot of people in common. And there was an event, and you know, we were in conversation, and then he was like, "Yeah, I know. You know, you should spin here. It's great." And that's next thing happened.
You've opened a lot of doors for a lot of different, you know, opportunities to happen. You're quite the door opener without really realizing that's what you're doing. That's true. New York Hall of Fame.
New York City, yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about that.
That blew me away. That was really something. I have a big subway token as a memento. This organization that, you know, established in New York City Hall of Fame, and they just recognize different people that have done stuff for the city. And
yeah,
you know, the list of people who've gotten that award is what's really impressive.
Yes.
So,
but you are very much a community-oriented person as well. There's a lot of give back in terms of being involved in community initiatives, right? Even outside of what you do. With the music.
I'm very connected to where I'm from.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that's just like visceral. I mean, and I think
for you
that,
it is, but it's not for everyone.
Well, for me it is.
Yeah.
So let's just say that. So
yeah.
I'm very connected to where I'm from, and I've lived there most of my life, and it's important to me and my community.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. What about the future, Rekha?
I don't know.
Tell me what you got planned. Do you have any plans? Are you a planner? Do you strategize, or do you just go with the flow?
I think it's like really detailed and then really big, but not enough in between to make it practical.
Right.
I don't know what's going on in the future. I keep saying I'm going to write, but I keep saying it and it hasn't happened. I want to just, you know, collaborate and do some other stuff. I haven't put out music in a while, except for the odd remix. And
yeah.
I'm setting up a new space in Brooklyn, so I'm really hoping to, you know, get back in there.
I'm really happy to have had the opportunity to chat with you, to
Thank
hear
you.
more about kind of, you know, just the place that you make your decisions. And that's kind of what I've learned today. And I still think you're a tremendous personality. I'm honored that you're here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I do want to know what the next big thing is that Rekha's going to do, because
so
you're that door opener. You keep opening doors without realizing it.
When I find out, I'll let you know.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much,
Thank
my
you.
darling.
Thank
I
you
really
so much.
appreciate you.
Thank you.